Leeds Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Vita Lakes.
To get government contracts, the Liberal minister from Edmonton said that he was Indigenous, but he's not. He said that he wasn't the Randy who was involved in the ongoing operations of the company that was applying for government contracts, but text messages show that he was. Now, he also said he wasn't directing his company from the cabinet table, but we know that that's also not true. Not true, not true, and not true. So we don't know which minister they're going to stand up, but what we want to know from that minister is, do they think that that behavior is appropriate, and do they think that he should remain in cabinet?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House of Commons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the minister has already responded to those questions. But what I find really interesting is that today marks 1,000 days since Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine, and we have not heard a single question about this from the Conservative members of Parliament. This is unsurprising for them, given the fact that when it comes to their support for Ukraine, it has been wavering over the past year. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we stand for Ukraine. Do the Conservative members of Parliament?
Exactly. Question.
Well, I'm glad that the minister showed up for work, but she must have been late enough to not hear our statement where we expressed, of course, our support for Ukraine. But let's focus on the facts. The facts are that their cabinet colleague is involved with cocaine traffickers. Their cabinet colleague is pretending to be Indigenous in order to disenfranchise Indigenous-owned companies and Indigenous people. That's who they're in league with. That minister can't seem to tell the truth to save his own life. So Randy or other Randy or pretend Indigenous Randy, none of them should be in cabinet. Why won't they fire this fraudster?
Mr. Speaker, during committee and just now, the Minister of Indigenous Services refused to defend her colleague, the pretend Indigenous Minister of Employment. The Minister of Employment pretended to be Indigenous so that his company could steal contracts from Indigenous communities and businesses. While the Prime Minister continues to be the defender of the pretender, even his cabinet colleagues are losing face. Now, this question is for the Minister of Indigenous Services. Will she stand up and defend her cabinet colleague, or should he be fired?
Good.
The Honourable Minister for Indigenous Services.
You know, Mr. Speaker, just moments ago I was speaking with the National Chief about the shenanigans that are happening at Nylon Committee as the Conservatives attempt to undermine the study of the water legislation that so many First Nations have poured their heart and soul into, Mr. Speaker, preventing it from actually getting to this place and hopefully eventually to Senate. They talk about standing up for First Nations people, but when they have the chance to be allies, they completely drop the ball.
The Honourable Member from Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, the cost of living is up and Canadians can't keep up. Meanwhile,